thank you for joining us today. This is the Subconscious Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Gabe Roberts. Our guest today, I'm very pleased, very blessed to have here. He's been somebody I have followed for easily the last decade. Since I started doing functional medicine, he has been at the very peak of that, making excellence part of that. And I remember the first time I actually met you in person, I walked up to you and I shook your hand. I said, "Hey, since I'm here with you in person, I just want to let you know how appreciative I am of you bringing functional medicine into the spotlight for what it is." And that guest is Sachin Patel, a wonderful father, husband, philanthropist, functional medicine practice success coach, as well as a wonderful speaker, author, breathwork facilitator, and plant medicine advocate, especially when it comes down to things like mushrooms. I know that's one of the things that you know very well, and at one point you were studying in depth and could see all the wonderful benefits from. I learned a great deal about mushrooms from listening to you. Sachin is convinced the doctor of the future is the patient, which is a really wonderful philosophy that I would like him to kind of go into depth a little more. He's committed himself to helping others raise their levels of consciousness, activate their inner doctor, and initiate their deepest healing through the use of lifestyle and breath work. Sachin founded the Living Proof Institute, through which he pioneered a revolutionary approach to a patient-centered healthcare. He coaches hundreds of practitioners around the world so they are empowered to deliver affordable and inspired care to their communities through his Perfect Practice Mentorship Program. Sachin, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I'm pleased to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Gabe. It's an absolute honor, and the feeling's very mutual. Thank you for inspiring me in so many ways with the work that you're doing. I'm honored for this opportunity, and I'm grateful that we get to spend this time together.
Awesome. I am as well, sir. So what I'd like to do is I've always heard you say this mantra, and it's been something you've said for a long time. And I think at one time in a hotel, we were kind of even talking about this. But for our listeners today, the doctor of the future is the patient. I think that's a good place to start. What does this mean?
Oh, well, thank you. I'll tell you what it means to me, beyond, the obvious, which is we're trying to reposition the role of the healer, not necessarily outsourcing that to a physician or any type of therapist, but really insourcing it by becoming our own healer and activating our own inner healing potential. So, at face value, that's what it means. But as we kind of peel the onion a little bit, so to speak, one of the things I want people to know is that nobody's coming to save them. And it sounds like a morbid thought, but nobody can care about you more than you care about you. And so it's really important that we take on that role. And, the word in Latin, the word doctor, docere, means to teach. And I also want to kind of redefine what I want that word to mean, since these days we can just make up whatever we want, it seems. And I want to redefine the word doctor not as a teacher, but as the forever student. And that's what I am. Is I just am a forever student. So I go down different rabbit holes, and I go pretty deep, as I did with mushrooms, and to the point where I was teaching mushrooms at a CEU level to other medical doctors. And it was just
Wow.
fun to go down that rabbit hole and then come back up for air and teach it to as many people as I could. Did the same thing with breathing and breath work. So I went pretty deep down the rabbit hole. I've taught it to practitioners, thousands of practitioners now, and bringing that to more people has been really fun. And I'm just continuing to learn and evolve. And as I learn, also as a forever student, to be the forever teacher, the forever doctor, by sharing it with others what I learned. So it's kind of it's a way of life, right? And I remember when I was just starting my journey, the first person that influenced me to start thinking this way was a gentleman named Rick Yost. He was actually replacing me at my chiropractic job that I had. And I walked out of the office and he said, "Hey, I heard you're really into nutrition. I think you'll love this CD." And it was a James Chestnut CD. And I popped it into my car. I had a 6 CD player at the time. So it was 2 CDs. I popped them both in and I listened to that CD and have listened to that CD probably over 1,000 times now. And one of the things that James said that really stuck with me is that we don't need more doctors, more hospitals, more nurses, more beds, more medicines. What we actually need is more healthy people. And then I looked at the path of somebody being quote unquote healthy, and that path is usually scarred with getting sick first. So, this day and age, if you want to get healthy, you first have to get sick, right? Have a come to Jesus moment or a meet your savior type of moment, have a second chance at life, and then a lot of people hopefully turn their life around. But nowhere along the way are we taught how to be healthy. Nowhere along the way is anyone teaching us how to go above and beyond baseline. And so I just started imagining a world where that was the case, where we weren't waiting for people to get sick and just assuming everything was okay, but using the knowledge that I acquired in functional medicine, chiropractic, and lifestyle medicine, breathing, mushrooms, all that stuff. I pour that into my son and I get to witness it in action. So it's just wonderful to see, how we can, plant these seeds of not just, waiting until we get sick and recovering, but really what does it look like to live as healthy as you can with the awareness that we have, because that can give each of us individually a very unique advantage above our older and former self, but it can also give us a unique advantage over others in whatever game we're playing, right? Whether it's at work, you'll have a unique advantage. If you're in business, you'll have a unique advantage. If you're a parent, you'll have a unique advantage. If you're a spouse, you'll have a unique advantage, which is the world gets to see the best version of you. So that's essentially how we want people to start thinking about their health is not not a disease prevention strategy, because the words disease and prevention have negative connotations, but a health creation strategy where the focus is creating health, not preventing something. Because as you know, as a subconscious healer yourself, the words that we use are very important, and the brain can't think in negatives. So anything we're preventing, we're also creating, right? If I tell you not to think of a pink elephant, like that's exactly what you're thinking about. So you can introduce you can give something energy by introducing it into a conversation.
Right.
And
I saw
so
your post, not to interrupt you, but I saw your post the other day, and I think it was so spot on with um the attention that is going on with the current uh agenda behind the Olympics and the picture and everything. I'm not ever saying to be naive about ignore these things, but your post was spot on for, don't share and don't give this stuff attention, because wherever your attention goes, it kind of grows. And I'm paraphrasing, but
mhm.
that's so true. So true.
Yeah, we tend to water weeds in our minds, and as we know, the world around us is a three-dimensional representation of whatever is going on here most consistently, and whatever up here has the most emotional charge to it. So I think, like, I watched. It's funny because I ended up somehow catching the end of the ceremony where I guess the balloon went up. I was like, oh, that was pretty nice. That was great. And that was the end of it. That was my experience. And didn't think much of it. The next morning I wake up and here we are, even giving it more energy, the irony. But it was just interesting because I would have never known had people not given it more attention. And I try to carefully curate my friends list, and I'm gonna go in and curate it even a little bit further, because I can see patterns that some people just are constantly talking about the things they don't like, and that drags me in the mud with them because I can't ignore it if I see it. So what I would encourage everyone to do if you want to improve your subconscious health, right? Because the brain reads everything, not just the things we give conscious attention to, but your brain is reading every feed, every post and every feed that you're seeing and embedding it into, a filing cabinet, if you will, uh, we're just giving it more energy. So yeah, like a quick tip for people to improve their subconscious health is to improve their online environment and pay attention to that.
Oh, for certain. And that's one of the things that I share with them too, is not only the online content, but particularly TV shows and movies and things like that. One of the things I
Mm-hmm.
always share with them is you cannot the subconscious mind is the most powerful goal achieving agency known to humanity. It can't judge a single decision. And whenever you put emotional charge to, you automatically open the window between the two minds, and it goes in and starts running as a program under the surface. So it's a manifesting machine. Our brains create scalar waves, and these scalar waves go out as unconscious thoughts and interact with the quantum world. And when it has enough duration and intensity, it slows down and coagulates into what we'd call a life experience. And this is all going on without our awareness. But if you cannot dump garbage into the mind and expect to have treasures and bliss and harmony and everything else coming out on the outside. So
Mhm.
it's very important to watch that. And if you see those things come up, if you see those feeds, um, not give attention to it, not get emotional charge with it. Because I think what it's kind of funny, we were talking about that, and you said I witnessed the end of it, the balloon kind of rose, and you're like, oh, it's kind of nice. You had a particular energy going towards that, so it was a good experience for you. And then the next day, you're seeing the flip side of that. So I think it's one person could see something potentially bad and one person could see something good in it. And I think it's really important to pay attention to those energies you give it. Like the old, I've seen a picture that goes around, it has a picture of a bee, and one person sees it as potentially dangerous. They could sting, and another person says that's a wonderful pollinator. That's
Mhm.
necessity in nature. So great point though.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I've always wanted to ask you, and I think right now is a good time, is for our listeners um, that maybe don't know what functional medicine is, and maybe they've heard it. It can almost be like a catchphrase, as you know. Some chiropractors with very little education can take a weekend muscle testing course and start advertising functional medicine.
Hmm.
Um, and like you told me years ago on the phone, there's muscle test or there's functional medicine 2.0, and then there's 3.0. But I would like to hear your definition as an expert in this. What is functional medicine for people that aren't sure of it, and how is it different?
Yeah, great question. It's really interesting because I had a chance to spend a weekend with Jeffrey Bland, who is given credit to coining the phrase functional medicine. And he actually told us a story about how it came to be. And so I asked him, how do you define this? And there are certain criteria. So one is that it's personalized, so it's individualized for the person. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't an 80% overlap between what I would tell person A versus person B, and perhaps even a 95% overlap. But there are unique factors for each of us, and not just in our biology, in our DNA, for example, but also in our environments, right? So, two people with the same blood work in two different environments are going to require two different types of interventions, or perhaps they're going to require they're going to have unique needs that need to be addressed. So, taking the individual into account. Next is having an upstream mentality. So instead of cleaning up the problem downstream and putting a band-aid on it, okay, we go upstream to figure out where's this problem coming from. So for example, downstream, if somebody has fatty liver, right, we don't want to just kind of focus on the liver. We want to focus on what's going on upstream that's causing this major organ to become dysfunctional, because chances are that's probably causing other organs to become dysfunctional in different ways that we may not be able to measure or may not even be looking for. So we start taking an upstream approach so we can get closer to the root cause. Another key component is that functional medicine is very participatory, which means that the client is participating in the healing process. And in fact, I would argue that 80% of the work is being done by the client versus 80% being done by the practitioner, which is in a traditional relationship. So it's participatory, it's bio-individualized, takes the environment into account, and it also takes unique testing and laboratory assessments into account. Usually, we're looking at a broader spectrum of markers to help identify sometimes causative factors or specific targeted therapies that we want to intervene with. So yeah, I think that gives people an understanding of a high level understanding, at least, of what functional medicine means. And that's kind of my loose definition as well. And it could mean different things to different people, but it really is centered around the patient, centered around going upstream, and then also centered around the client participating in their journey.
And whenever you would, and that's a fantastic definition. I think it really sets it apart, and I think that you probably define that better than most people could if they were asked to define functional medicine, given a well-rounded explanation of all those factors involved. I mean, I certainly would have gave some kind of definition myself, but clearly not as defined and specific as that. So when it comes to people that, let's say, have fatty liver disease, let's say that there's somebody that has that, and you're looking upstream of that, what are some things that would typically be associated with causing that?
Yeah, so with fatty liver, we're seeing a huge issue with really processed and refined carbohydrates, especially high fructose corn syrup. So we're seeing that that's causing a lot of issues with the liver. We're also seeing, if we're looking at trends and overall, deficiencies that we're seeing in people's lifestyles, I would say that people are very deficient in lighting. So lighting, uh, it's, there's been people like Jack Cruz that have been talking about this for over a decade now. But that's going to be the next big push in medicine you're going to see here is that, two big things that are really trending right now are breathing and breath work and lighting. So that's why, part of the reason I'm sitting outside is because I'm actively trying to get more naked light into my eyes and onto my skin because I'm learning about how powerful it is and I'm experiencing it myself. In fact, in the last month, by consciously focusing on more light exposure, and without actually exercising less, so actually not even going to the gym, I've been able to maintain my muscle mass and also drop my resting heart rate by almost 10 beats per minute.
Wow.
So it's amazing just to see by managing my light environment and being hyper conscious of it, I'm getting measurable results on my Aura Ring that are superseding anything that I've ever done before. So I think, if we start looking at if we start going upstream, I think a big problem that a lot of people have these days that causes their dysfunctional food choices is dysfunctional lighting. So just like our mouth eats, our eyes also eat. And the information that we get from the light in our environment is like nutrients for our brain and sends important signals to our brain and hormonal system as well. So this is why we'll see, that people who have chronic illness are often low in vitamin D. And when somebody's low in vitamin D, it's a proxy for having not getting enough sunlight because when you get in the sun, it's myopic for us to think that the only benefit is you're increasing vitamin D production. There's actually many other benefits of getting sunlight. So getting sun has a domino effect on several systems in our body, including our, cortisol production, our melatonin production, our mitochondrial function, our food cravings, our sense of reward. So our dopamine production is all centered around sunlight. And so when somebody comes in and they have fatty liver, I'm not just thinking of their liver. The liver is a downstream problem. I'm going, what are the things that I could do upstream? What are the dominoes that if this person did would give them 1,000 other benefits? And one of those key dominoes is, proper lighting and sunlight exposure, proper breathing, proper connecting with nature and grounding, proper hydration, slowing down with our meals, chewing our food. I mean, really getting back to the basics. And, this is all grounded in science, right? And it's all measurable. And people can see results very quickly. So they tend to stay very compliant. So, to a long winded answer to your question, is I go right to the top. I go to what are the key dominoes that are easy, that are free, that create a multitude of benefits, and now 1,000 things start working better, right? So sunlight activates thousands of genes in our body, and so if all they have to do is sit outside more? That's so easy, free, and doable, and they don't have to change their diet. And what's really interesting is that the more sunlight we get, our diet automatically starts changing because we are making more dopamine, so we're not craving the wrong types of food anymore. And so we're not
Interesting.
looking for those quick fixes because our lighting is creating those chemicals for us. And so these are things that we would start working on with people. And that's what's going to create the most rapid change because when people work with us, one of the things that we're really focused on is short feedback loops. And a short feedback loop is where you can measure and see a change on a daily basis or even multiple times a day. So we give our clients an aura ring. So every day they can see what their stress levels are, they can see what their activity levels are, what their sleep scores are. Areas of improvement are then identified. So we can then give them something to measure to see that things are getting better. We give them a smart scale so they can see how their body composition is changing along with their weight. We have them measure different areas of their body, like their abdomen, because we can start seeing quick and rapid changes there. And so we give people short feedback loops that they can work with, so they're uh, much more on board, and they also have ways to measure the progress they're making, but also they become an experiment, so they can start experimenting with how different things affect them as well. So they become self-regulating at that point, and again, they're able to kind of unleash that inner doctor and know how to make better choices for themselves.
Fantastic. You mentioned light deficiency. So how, and that might sound odd to some people, and I know myself, I've definitely go out in the sun regularly. I mean, you can even tell I'm a little red from it right now, but I go out in the sun all the time, and I can definitely tell the benefits. And there's even a mineral, I believe, I think called Scandinavian or scandium or something. We receive nutrients, and one of these is a mineral from breathing in sunlight.
Hmm.
But when you talk about light deficiency, we're light deficient. How are some of the ways that really plays out? Is it's not only being away from the sun, but isn't there ways that the lighting inside of us is pretty detrimental too? How's that work?
Yeah. So here's what I'll say with this. I think that this is a very deep rabbit hole, and I am still maybe an inch down the mile deep rabbit hole. So I'll explain what I know because I feel that that helps me learn how to articulate it better. And I still think what I'm going to share is going to be very beneficial, but I'm going to encourage people to kind of do more exploration in this area. So every animal, every plant, every insect, every bird regulates its biology based on the rising and setting of the sun, except human beings and animals that we've domesticated. So we've evolved or have been created to benefit from this ball of light that travels from the east and goes over our head and goes over into the west and sets every night. And so different systems in our body are triggered by different frequencies of light. And UVA and UVB light trigger specific hormones in our body that essentially turn us into solar batteries. So our mitochondria respond to sunlight, our retina responds to sunlight, which activates different systems in our body. So, different, as you would imagine, certain systems in the body need to be more active in the morning to get our day started versus systems being deactivated at night when it's time to go to sleep. Right. So, there's a cyclical nature, a circadian nature to our biology, which is coordinated with the rising and setting of the sun. And so if we're spending a lot of time indoors and the lights in our house are usually not full spectrum, so you're not getting all the spectrums of light that the sun would be giving you, especially infrared light, and you're also not getting the intensity. So you can't match the intensity of being outdoors in terms of the amount of lux that's produced versus being outdoors. There's absolutely no comparison. It's orders of magnitude uh, way brighter outside, regardless of how much you crank the lights up inside. So the sun is constantly moving. The lighting that we have is fixed, and it's usually fixed overhead. So our brain thinks it's midday all day.
Wow.
And so it never really allows our different organ systems to be activated appropriately. So when you look at a clock in Chinese medicine, if you were to look at a clock, it wouldn't just have numbers 1 through 12 on it. It would have organs and systems 1 through 12 on it,
Right.
based on which ones are most active at different hours of the day. And that makes sense, right? Like we would want our, kind of our respiratory system and our cardiovascular system and our cortisol and things like that more activated in the morning when we wake up. And we want to like deactivate them at night when we go to bed. So what's crucially important for somebody's health is to start regulating their biology and matching it with the rising and setting of the sun. There's a great app that people can get. It's called Circadian. And Circadian will tell you based on the city that you put in, when it's dusk and dawn, when the sun is rising, when UVA is coming into factor, and when UVB is coming into factor, and when it's midday. And it'll remind you periodically to get outside if you are an indoor worker and you can't be outside. It'll remind you to get outside at different times during the day. So it helps you just optimize your circadian biology further with the little active nudges. Or you could do what I do and just move your office outdoors. I have a, inexpensive IKEA table and chair that I'm sitting on. And I've got a beautiful view here, and I get to be outside with the birds and the insects and all the trees and the fresh air and the
Right.
sunlight. And so I get all those signals that are coming in. And if I wasn't on this call, I'd be sitting in the sun with my shirt off so that I could get even more energy generation taking place. So it's really fascinating when we get in the sun. We instantly feel better. And part of the reason is because there's a gene that we activate called POMC or POMC, it's referred to as, and it's pro-opiomelanocortin. And essentially, and forgive me, I'm just learning this, but essentially what that does is it releases opioids and endorphins, so we feel
Mm.
better. It helps us increase the production of melanocyte stimulating hormone. And our melanocytes are basically like little solar panels. So not only do they help us detox heavy metals as one of their benefits, but they also act as solar panels so that we become better absorbers of sunlight. So for example, when we tan, that's increasing melanocyte production. So it's increasing melanin production, which is what gives us that tan, and we actually become better at absorbing sunlight. And then it also increases cortisol. So, and that makes sense because it's daytime. I want to be making cortisol. I want to make sure that the sun is going to signal that. So when sun hits our eyes, it increases our dopamine, increases our cortisol because it's signaling our body to do that. And when it does that, now we're not relying on caffeine to prop ourselves up. We're not relying on, just slogging it in the morning, right? And using stimulants, because if we just got outside for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even if we checked our email outside or checked our phones outside, the amount of brightness that we would receive would wake us up and give us that alertness. And so instead of tricking our brain with caffeine to think we're not tired, we would actually be stimulating our adrenals naturally through sunlight getting into the eyes.
Do you need to
So
be, forgive me for interrupting, but do you need to be directly in the sun for all this to take place, or kind of like how you're doing right now in a shaded spot? Is that adequate?
yeah, so I would say this is see, because you want to be able to see, right? So I'm going to get the light being reflected to me as well. And the position of the sun is constantly changing. So the shadows are changing. So there's signaling that's telling me where the sun is in my environment. And I will get out periodically in the hot sun. If I was sitting in the sun, I'd be sweating buckets right now because it's pretty warm today.
Hmm.
So the second best thing is to be in the shade if you can be, and just looking out and far away. And it's also better for our eyes. So if we're constantly staring at a fixed distance, that's not good for our eyes. So by having this vast expanse that you can look out to, it exercises the muscles of your eyes, so your vision also becomes more clear over time as well.
Right. I've heard that one of the ways you can improve visions is taking up bird watching. So,
Yeah,
that's a great point to that. So, to get benefits of this, obviously, the more sun, the better, right? Like you're kind of describing having your office outside and whatnot. For some people that may be indoor workers or may not have the option of bringing a desk outside, what are some ways they can get benefits? You mentioned the reminders to kind of nudge them to go out.
Mhm.
If they're going to have this throughout the day, and little reminders to tell them to go outside, ideally, how long do they need to go out in the sun for getting benefits?
Yeah, as you're asking that question, I was jokingly going to say that they should take up smoking
Ah,
because interestingly enough, smokers get more fresh air than somebody who sits inside all day at their office in their chair,
I've heard that
right?
before. That is interesting.
So they get more fresh air, they get more sunlight, and they freaking get a break, right? So I'm not saying take up smoking, but take up, anytime somebody goes out for a cigarette, maybe you join them in the elevator, but then you go for a quick walk, right? And that could be a reminder. Find somebody so that you don't feel like you're taking all these breaks. Find somebody else who is, and step outside with them, and maybe you can go for a walk with them too, if that's something that they want to do. So you can find a buddy at work that will be your go outside partner. Make it a point to get outside, and if they get the app Circadian, there'll be reminders that tell them when to get outside to kind of recalibrate their circadian rhythm again.
And no sunglasses, right?
No sunglasses, no contacts, and no prescription glasses either, because usually prescription glasses have UV filters in them. So it filters out the benefits of UV light. Contacts are usually going to have those filters in them as well. And certainly sunglasses, if you want a sunburn, wear sunglasses on a bright sunny day, because what happens is when you don't get the proper signals going in, because you're not seeing how bright it is, because that's being filtered and the UV light's being filtered. It's not telling your body to make the melanocytes to stimulate to make melanin, and so as a result of that, you burn instead of tan. And so you want to,
Right.
one way for people, you're obviously more fair skinned than I am, and people who might burn or easily, the way you build up your solar callus is by getting out in the morning, the first hour of sun between sunrise and the first hour of the day. There is no UV light. So that's a great time where you're getting mostly like red and infrared light. That's a great time to build up your solar callus so that you're more tolerant to the UVA and UVB light when it comes in later in the day. So the key to being able to tolerate the sun more is to get in the sun more, but get in the sun more at the right time of day.
Okay. So the first hour, and
Yep.
what about in the evening? I know that I've seen your wife post this, and this is probably really important because you're talking about feedback coming into the eyes, um, avoiding screen time at night. But what else is really important as it starts to get towards those later hours in the day? Um, are there benefits when the sun's going down as far as the light goes, or is it more
Yeah.
beneficial as things get dark? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So if you could only be outside 3 times a day, because you've created a artificial prison of a life for yourself, right? So if you can't get outside 3 times a day, then you're not free, right? You're nowhere close to free. So you
Right.
still want to start questioning your entire existence if your life does not permit you to be outside during the first hour of the day for even just 5 minutes. Midday, which is anywhere between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., depending on where in the world you are and what time of year it is. So the app will tell you exactly when midday is. Today it's around 1:30. So it's not exactly at noon, right? There's a man-made time and then there's God's time, which is where the sun
Right.
is. And then the last hour of the day. So those are the three key times you want to be outside. And the here's the interesting thing about we've all heard of melatonin, okay? And what's so fascinating is that you asked about fatty liver and we're talking about melatonin, right? That's functional medicine. It's just like connecting the dots. So we make melatonin in the mitochondria, and we make in the presence of darkness. So we make melatonin all day, but in the presence of darkness, we release melatonin from the pineal gland. And so we
Mm,
typically associate melatonin with sleep, but melatonin is more better correlated with darkness. And so it's important for us to note when we're talking about light that we want to get as much bright light in the evening as possible, and then we want to get as dark in the evening as possible. So during the day when the sun is out, you want to try to get as much light into your eyes as you can throughout the day, whether you're directly in the sun or in the shade when it's really hot. And when the sun's right overhead, you can only take so much. And that's when you can rest, get, shade under a tree. So I have a big tree in my front yard. Sometimes I'll sit under there. I've got an awning here, so I can sit here. So I've got all the other benefits of being outside, but I'm still getting the benefits of the light that's coming at me. And then it's much easier for me to take periodic breaks if I need to. And so that's important. And then dark at night. So what I encourage people to do at nighttime is turn off as much of the overhead lighting as they can without being dangerous. So you want to be mindful. Turn on lamps with shades or floor lighting, which is red in color. So we actually give our clients special bulbs, and these bulbs are flicker free. They're LED bulbs, but they're red, and a specific frequency of red light that helps instantly calm the body. And when we turn these on, everyone feels calm, right? So parents, if your kids are rambunctious and wild and you're trying to get them to go to sleep, yelling at them is not going to do the trick. Manipulating their lighting environment will now get their biology working with you. See, a lot of times we're fighting our children's biology, but if we understand how biology works, then we can manipulate it in such a way so that it actually works for us. So if all the lights are cranking and bright in the evening, you can't expect your kids to be tired,
And that
right?
goes with screen time as well, right?
They go, yeah, exactly. Anything with blue light is going to stimulate us. So we turn off overhead lighting. If we're watching television, we put our blue blocker lights on, blue blocker, sorry, glasses on, and uh, and then we put our TV on the lowest video setting, the lowest brightest brightness that we could take it to, and then we turn on red lamps everywhere when it's dark, and then that we do after the sun goes down. Okay, so it's very very red in our house in the evenings, but we love it because we get amazing sleep. Like everyone in our family sleeps really well, and a lot of it has to do with how we manage our lighting environment. And so I would say really bright during the day, really dark at night, as a way to kind of reset your circadian rhythm. So if there was like just a few things that I could help people with, first thing would be circadian rhythm. You can work on that instantly right after this call, or even during this call. If you're listening to this, you could literally be outside and start leveraging this tool. The next tool we like to work on is breathing, and that's a whole different conversation. But simply put, if people would just breathe less, they would live longer, right? It sounds counterintuitive, but slowing down our breath is one of the fastest ways to slow down the aging process, and it's one of the easiest things to change. So right now, you can start slowing down your breath, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, or 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, whichever feels more comfortable. But just simply slowing down your breath is going to make a huge difference. And the third thing that we encourage people to do more of is sleep more. So it's amazing how many people complain about being tired. And, you just look at how much time they're spending on recovery, and it's very minimal, right? So we've kind of tipped, I don't know where it happened, but we tipped the scales at some point where it was not cool to sleep anymore. And it was a sign of being lazy, and it was a
Right.
sign of being unproductive, right? So there was a whole like, generation of people that are scarred by this idea that you've got to work really hard, to get ahead in life. And that isn't to say I don't appreciate people who work hard, but sometimes people just grind themselves down to a stump and they don't give their bodies enough time to recover. And what they don't realize is that we're far more productive when we're rested. So going at it tired and trying to fake it till you make it, you're never going to make it.
Right.
So you're better off sleeping it till you make it, giving your body the rest and recovery that it needs so that all systems are firing. And here's what happens, Gabe, within just a few days, people start feeling better. Like it doesn't take long for people to see measurable improvements with their aura ring, with the scale, subjectively, with their energy. And it's measurable
And you're
to
and you're
them as
talking
well.
about just changing with the lights, changing the exposure to lights, minimizing the bright in the afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
dark in the evenings, and when the sun goes down, um, blue blocking sunglasses, red lights in the house. And when red lights in the house, do you mean just red fluorescent bulbs is adequate, or is there a specific kind of red light that you recommend that would bring that calmness in the brain?
Yeah, no, great question. So depending on your budget, right, you can buy LED bulbs that have remotes on them, and just from a flick of a remote, you can change the color of the bulb. So you can get a pack of six of those for like $20. So that's like the cheapest way to go about it. Okay. If you wanted to have color changing bulbs in your home, you could do that. We use a special type of bulb made by a company called Bon Charge, and it's a
Bond charge?
yeah, so BON, CHARGE. It means good
Okay.
energy in French. So that company makes special bulbs, and those are flicker-free LEDs tuned to a specific frequency. I think it's 660 nanometers. And so that frequency is attuned to help us kind of shift into a more relaxed state. And so those light bulbs don't have any blue or green light in them.
So do you have specific like lamps in your house that you turn on that have these light bulbs in
Yep.
them, and then you
Yep.
keep the other
Exactly.
lights off, right? So
Yep. So we
very,
turn
very
off,
simple.
yeah,
So
we
very
turn off the
simple
overhead
steps,
light.
huh?
Yeah. So we turn off the overhead lighting, and then we have two lamps with red bulbs in them. So we turn those two on in our television room. We have some downlights, downlight pendulums in our kitchen, and we've got three red bulbs screwed into them. So then we turn off the overhead lights and then turn these pendulum lights on. So the kitchen's all red. And then our bedroom has two red light bulbs in it, and my son's bedroom has a red light bulb in it. In our bathroom at night, we use a red light panel to light the bathroom up, and we use that panel during the day to as red light therapy as well.
Sachin, that's a wonderful tip that people can start to make immediately in their difference. I think I'm going to start. You say bond charge, BON charge,
Yep,
okay, and you can order bulbs just for like regular lamps or whatnot.
yep. If
So it can be
you're
a pretty easy, so it can be a pretty easy thing to do, right?
Yep, you just swap out if you've got lamps that you use currently, or you can buy a small lamp or two. You just screw them in, and they work like any other light bulb. They just happen to be a wonderful red. I'll tell you a funny story, Gabe. So I had a bunch of my family was over at my house, and they know that it's lights out is like a non-negotiable at our house. So you're welcome to stay, but it's going to be dark. Okay, and you're also welcome to leave. It's going to be dark. So, so I had family over, and I started turning off all the lights, and my mom starts freaking out and panicking, right? She's like, "What are you doing? Why are you turning off all the lights?" And I said, "Relax, just, you know, like I just it's too bright in here." And so then everyone like starts, I turn off all the lights and everyone's like moaning and groaning. I said, "Okay, guys, just give me 5 minutes." Okay. That's all I asked them for. And I said, "In 5 minutes, if you guys change your mind, then I promise I'll turn them all back on." In five
Wow.
minutes, they were begging me to keep them on and not turn on the overhead lights anymore. Because when we're exposed to bright lighting, our pupils are very constricted. So when you dim the lights or turn them off, the red light, it's going to take a minute or two for your pupils to adjust. And then you feel like it's bright enough. So initially, for some people, it might feel really dark. But then as people start, bathing in that light, their energy starts to become far more relaxed. They become happier, more jovial, less wired, more energetic in a fun way, and they appreciate it too. And then pretty much everyone leaves my house asking me, "Where can I get these bulbs?"
That's fantastic. And I would like to dive into the breath work perhaps on another conversation because for anyone listening, uh, Sachin is a complete expert on this. And he even shared a picture that was very fascinating. Like it would just get skeptics right away of your entire face changing shape because you learned how to breathe correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And breathing is one of the things that I do consciously. I try to keep it slow, and one of the things that I've always liked was the 4-7-8 breathing that I believe Dr. Andrew Weil
Yep.
kind of brought to the mainstream. Um, and I remember doing a lot of breathing back in the day and thought was very helpful. You have taken it to a whole nother level, though, beyond anything that I was aware of. Um, but breath is one of those things that um, is a huge topic we can say for another time, but it has that connection between conscious and unconscious. So it provides a window because we're doing it without thinking about it, but we can also consciously take control and activate a different set of muscles and nerves to start to activate our breathing system. And I think the pupils are similar to that, that I never thought about. I always thought it was blinking and breathing that were the two ways that accessed both conscious and unconscious, but the pupils is another way I never thought of, that you can control consciously and subconsciously or unconsciously by controlling the light. So when you turned off the light and the family was kind of adjusting to that, the pupils dilated and they went to a parasympathetic state, which was probably very welcome because most people are very sympathetic dominant today. Um, so they were asking you how to get those bulbs, huh? When they
Yeah.
left.
Well, you want to hear something else that's funny? My wife will get a kick out of this. I'll have to tell her about this conversation. Is that anytime somebody has a baby, and without fail, anytime somebody has a baby, my wife will ask me, "What should we get them?" And my answer is always a red bulb. So if you're having a child or you have a child and you want to improve the quality of their sleep, um, have them be more likely to sleep through the night, then managing this one aspect of their life could change everything for you and for them. So it's almost amazing, when mothers are trying to put their children to sleep, including my wife, because we didn't know better. We're not always considering how lighting is playing a role in how that baby's being stimulated. Right? It seems obvious, like EMF would be an issue, like that seems obvious to us, but it's what's not always obvious is the intensity of lighting and the type of lighting that the child is seeing. I mean, their nervous system responds the same way, whether they know the information or not, and
Right.
it can be very stimulating to them here while we're trying to put them to sleep. So these bulbs are my go-to gift. And my wife's like, "Oh, don't be silly. People aren't going to want that." I'm like, "That's what you think, and that's what they think until they use it, and they're going to be
Right.
forever grateful."
Right. I mean, you've definitely got me sold. I'm going to go purchase these right away and then get some lamps and put them throughout the house. So just that one simple step, on shifting it, because I've been wondering about that. My house has fantastic lighting on here, but it's all overhead, and
Hmm.
we are off the grid, so we have beautiful landscapes. So we're outside frequently, outside all the time. Um, but I think whenever it gets to the dusk hours and the sun goes down is where we fall short, because we're still using the overhead lights and many times still looking at screens as well. So
Yeah. You
um,
know,
but
another big thing that if you ever have a chance, if you just go to Google and search sunlight versus LED, you'll see that there's graphs, and you can see how sunlight provides basically a full spectrum of light, all the way from ultraviolet to infrared. And if you look at an LED, you'll see that it provides almost no ultraviolet light, and it provides virtually no red light. And red light is healing. So the sun also produces blue light. So it's not that blue light is the enemy.
right,
It's when blue light is in isolation, then it's the enemy. Because when blue light is being presented by sunlight, all the other spectrums are visible as well. So it's not creating this abnormal spike in blue and nothing else. And if you look at CFL bulbs are even worse, because
mm,
what they've tried to do is create so much efficiency, but in that efficiency, they're leaving out information, right? That's why the bulbs are more efficient, because there's less information. That would be like me giving you a software packet and saying, "Hey, here's a more efficient software update. It's only 5 MB, but 95% of the information is missing." You would never install that on your computer, right? Because you already
right,
know it's going to cause problems. But that's the light that most people are exposed to all day, every day. And our kids are exposed to this, babies are exposed to this, or and we don't realize how much that's impacting our chemistry. And if it could be as simple as changing your light bulbs, or just having a different set of lights go on in the evenings as opposed to during the day, you'll see a huge shift. In fact, one of my friends, John, he called me up. He's like, Sachin, my sleep scores suck. Like I've been doing everything. Like what can I take? And I'm like, dude, it's not about what you take. It's all about lighting. So I said, I just want you to do a lights out challenge. And he's like, what does that mean? I'm like, it's exactly what it means. When the sun goes down, no more lights. And that's it, right? No screens, no TVs, no blue blockers, just nothing. If you're going to have anything on, it's just red light. But even then, I would encourage you not to. And tell me how your sleep is. Within 3 days, he was sleeping like a baby.
Wow.
So, of course, I could have given him a ton of supplements and tranquilizers and all kinds of stuff, but
Sure.
that would have been,
Sure.
that's like functional medicine 1.0, right? It's like
Right.
green medicine. And, where we're at now is like functional medicine. I don't even want to call it functional medicine because I almost feel like it's something beyond that. And we've been trying to come up with a name for it, but until then, we'll call it functional medicine. But it's really more lifestyle medicine, environmental medicine, and common sense. All at the same time, and just really going back to first principles when it comes to health. And if we were just to take our modern creature comforts out of the equation and ask ourselves, what would our rhythm be, right? So not only do we have a light rhythm, but we also have a temperature rhythm as well. So just like the Earth's temperature drops at night, our temperature should drop at night as well, anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees.
Mm,
So whereas most people live in a temperature regulated environment, right? So their core temperature never drops. And so they don't activate certain mechanisms of healing and repair. So temperature is also something that is circadian in its rhythm, but we take our modern creature comfort of being in constantly regulated temperatures, and guess what? Now we turn off that biological process in our bodies. So our goal is like, how do we go back to living within the parameters of nature as best as we can? Because nature is not negotiable, right? Just like I can't negotiate with a plant how much sunlight I'm going to give it
right.
and say, hey, listen, I'll give you more water. Just I'm going to plant you in the shade though, right? It's not going to grow. It's going to die.
Yep.
It actually needs more sunlight. And so for all of us, there's certain biological requirements that we have. And if we don't meet those, then we don't activate our inner potential. And so what we love doing is we love teaching people how to unlock those things. And in doing those things, you're creating a passive benefit for the rest of the family, right? If I were to give you a sleeping pill and you fell asleep at night and woke up and you had 100 score on your aura ring, but the rest of your family slept miserably because we didn't fix the actual cause of the problem, then I haven't really helped you, right? I've just
Right.
deflected the problem because if a child gets sick or a family member gets sick, right, then it's hard for you to be well, right? It's hard for you to take care of yourself. So by applying these kind of global practices, the entire household benefits, and now you give your kids and the rest of your family that unfair advantage, and that other families wouldn't have. I mean, just I challenge everyone to drive as far as they want through as many neighborhoods as they want, and tell me how many people have red light bulbs on, and tell me how many people have full spectrum light bulbs on after the sun goes down, and you'll see who's going to end up being sick and who isn't.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned that the blue light is not itself the enemy. It's because it comes from the sun, and it has all the full spectrum lights with it that make it more beneficial. We as humans tend to have this reductionist model that can be very harmful. Like, in other
Mhm.
words, we can easily take sulforaphane and put it in a pill content, which is the one of the beneficial molecules in broccoli. But taking sulforaphane by itself, uh, is not near as beneficial as eating the entire broccoli because of the components and the things that there's things we can measure and there's things we don't even know what's in there,
Mhm.
but it's making it work because it's the whole. And it's kind of the same with the sunlight. We can try to create artificial sun lamps and things like that, but there's still going to be components of nature that we aren't able to measure and we're not able to
Mhm.
evaluate, and that we're not going to incorporate into those things, and those things too have some kind of potential benefit with it. So it's interesting how we do that, and you're right, nature's non-negotiable. And I remember hearing you say that a long time ago. A lot of these things that really make sense. I followed you for years and I thought, oh, man, that really makes a lot of sense. And I think you you even mentioned throwing a plant into a closet at one time,
Mm-hmm.
saying you can't even, you can't make a plant thrive by throwing it in a closet. So how can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead
You
and
got to you got to give the
mention what you
plant
were.
everything that it needs.
Sachin, very briefly, how can people contact you and get a hold of you for more information?
Well, thank you, first of all, Gabe, for this opportunity to connect with you. I always enjoy our time together. People can learn more about the work that we do at the Living Proof Institute by going to www.becomeproof.com. And they can also go there, and when they go to the website, they can download our morning routine, or they can go to morningroutine.ca. That's a great place to kind of learn a little bit deeper about some of the things we talked about. Learn how to start your day to activate your metabolic systems, and watch the benefits that you receive in a short period of time. I think people will really find that greatly beneficial. And of course, you can follow me on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Sachin, I truly appreciate this. Has been an honor having you on here today. Thank you for all your wisdom and knowledge that you shared. I know I'm going to be going in and looking bond change up right away. Thank you for being here. And I would like to see you again, and maybe we go into the breathwork aspect a little bit. Okay.
Let's do it. I can see like almost being a 2-3 part series. When you and I get together, lots of greatness can happen. So I look forward to it.
All right, Sachin. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye bye.